Okay, let's go back then to where we were way back on the old homestead with the MacDonalds and the McClellans. The survey came through there, and they found out that it was all the same lot. Well, then McLennan moved to where Parches are now. Is that the
I always understood that it was where Parches are now, but some told me that he moved up to onto what afterwards became the Elliott lot. The next lot up.
Is that the one where the upper barn is?
Yes.
Yeah, there is a pretty old house up
Yes.
there. It could very well be. I would wonder, maybe he passed a lot of good farmland in getting there, but maybe he didn't want to end up in the same lot again. Well, then, from MacDonald, this was then sold to Grandpa?
Yes, Archie MacDonald sold it to his son Jim.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim MacDonald had it mortgaged. And well, I had given a mortgage on it and to for the Panaker. And he wasn't. He was getting behind with the his payments, and he sold it then to Dad. Dad paid off the mortgage and paid him so much and paid off the mortgage.
Well, would this be then what is now the farm proper? It wouldn't be the bush lot, say.
Oh no, just the lot 1 concession for Madawaska.
Because even at the end of the what was Grandpa's farm, they talk about MacDonald's fields. That would be off of the wouldn't be on the lot down where they put the gravel pit.
Well, that's where you mean the one in Madawaska?
Well, is that? Yeah, on the Madawaska side.
Well, that is where where Archie MacDonald moved to when he left the place to be sold to Jim MacDonald, and afterwards came him.
Why in the heck would he want to do that?
Well, he wasn't a farmer.
What, he just built a house to live in down there and.
Yes, and when he was on the farm where that my father bought, he never attempted to farm to make that a real living, and he done some farming, but at that time they didn't do too much. Picking stone or that. They cleared the land and burned it and made potash, and then all that ground that was burned over, they just went into it with a drag. It was a harrow made in a V shape with 9 teeth.
Straight teeth.
Straight teeth. And it tore up the ground sufficient for to put in a crop. And,
hand sown.
Yes, it was all hand sown, and it was all harvested by hand, and of course they'd usually put in some grass seed, and they had hay then the following year.
Yeah.
And it would be hay for quite a few years.
I remember Grandpa saying one time when he took over the farm there that all that area, what is now pasture, on both sides of the swamp was little cedars.
I can tell you better than that. In my time, there was a lot of that was pasture, and even a big portion of that, what we call the upper field, was in cedars. that had been cleared at one time, and then had grew up in with these cedars. And amongst the cedars, wherever there was a big stone, they piled all the little ones around that they could handle. They threw them around it, or onto it, so that they would have a clear passage between them.
Well, probably then Archie didn't do any work on it to any extent. Jim MacDonald, did he do?
Not too much, no.
So Grandpa essentially built up the farm in picking the stone and building the stone fences.
Yes, and putting up more modern buildings and a good house.
I would assume that it was like greenery was probably the next building he built, was it?
Yeah, I believe it was, though I wouldn't be sure. There was the log barn was there. It was MacDonald's built it.
MacDonald's built the old log barn?
Yes, and I don't know which of them, whether it was Archie MacDonald or Jim MacDonald. And of course they built the granary. I believe. I guess you're right in saying that it would be next, for it was just poles and cedar shakes, long handmade cedar shingles, about 4 feet long, and laid about probably 2 feet to the weather.
Well, Grandpa built the what we now call the stable.
And what is now the pig pen was the stable when he bought it. Only that it is in a different position, different place from where it is now. And when he moved it, he put 2 or 3 more rounds onto it.
Bring it up.
Yeah, he made the loft hold more. Yeah. As it was, the plate was right on, even with right on at the beams.
So you just had a straight peak there, right from the.
Yes. So he put on a few rounds on top of that, and used the same rafters, and boarded it in. Sheeted it rather, and shingled it. It was done with poles and cedar shakes originally. Yeah.
Well, did he build a big stable in your time?
No, not in my memory. Yes, I believe he built the stable before he built the house. 1908. He built the first part of it, the main part of the house, and 3 or 4 years afterwards he put the kitchen on it.